Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my Hoya pubicalyx, and I'm not kidding when I say this is probably one of my most neglected plants that I have in my entire collection. I forget to water it. I'm constantly cutting off all these tendrils or runners, and honestly I've thought about giving it away or even selling it, but that all changed today when I saw it has given me an absolutely gorgeous flower. So I thought I would make a video on how to care for it, how to propagate, all things that I do for it. If you're new to Hoyas, this is one Hoya specifically that is perfect for beginners. It's really fast growing, and as you can see, it does really well when you neglect it. Like I said, I completely underwater it all the time. Yeah, I just don't pay attention to it. But if you're looking to get into Hoyas, this is one Hoya that I would recommend if you're just starting out. So I'm going to talk about care, propagation, all that kind of stuff, so let's get into it. There are a number of different varieties of the Hoya pubicalyx, and I think the only way you can really identify which variety you have is by the color of the flowers. So this morning I kind of looked it up and I suspected this was the Hawaiian purple, and that's what I think this is just from the color of the flowers. These are absolutely gorgeous. I know I'm going to get a comment asking what the flowers smell like. This one, honestly, it doesn't have any smell right now, but I think it might have a little bit more fragrance in the evening with some Hoyas. Now I think it's the Rebecca, that thing is so fragrant. It's such a powerful smell. It's very sweet, that one in particular, but this one doesn't have any smell. I'll take a sniff tonight, this evening, and I'm hoping it's a nice sweet smell. All of my Hoyas are in different lighting locations. This one currently is in a west-facing window. It's on my small piano window, and it gets a lot of bright afternoon, evening sunlight, and it's way more intense than if you had it in an east-facing window, where it gets a little bit more of that delicate morning bright sunlight. I wouldn't suggest putting a Hoya in direct sunlight. They definitely need bright light, but if you put it in direct sunlight without slowly acclimating it, then you're definitely going to burn the leaves. This one has been in that west-facing window for a few years now, so I'm not worried about any leaf burn. And all the new leaves come out with a little bit of a purplish tone to it. Sometimes they come out completely or solid purple, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous leaf. I don't remember there being like a little bit of a splash on it when I bought the plant, so I don't know if that's from having it in higher light, but it's just a nice little, I guess, feature of the leaves themselves. You can see as they mature, it almost gets like a lime green when you have it in bright sunlight. But all the new leaves, they come out very dark with dark green and a little bit of a dark purple tinge to them, or tone to them, I should say. Some of my Hoyas are actually in a south-facing window as well, so they get full sun throughout the entire day. Again, I wouldn't recommend that unless you slowly transition it or acclimate it to that location. I have my Hoya Sunrise, Crimson Princess, the Rebecca, there's a couple other ones, and they do well. I have to water them quite frequently because they're using a lot of sunlight, they're using a lot of water. So I have to keep my eye on those ones fairly close, but I would have Hoyas, or suggest having Hoyas, in a bright location, no direct sunlight. They do love grow lights as well, and I have a few down here, like this Crimson Princess propagated cuttings. It's getting some new growth there as well. Here is some propagated cuttings of my Hoya polyneura. It's under this grow lamp right here. Look at this, this is just absolutely gorgeous. And then I have my Hoya Pottsii right here, and it's getting a little bit of a sun-stressed new leaf at the top there as well. They love the consistent light from the grow light, so if you don't have a bright location, they will definitely do well with a grow light. I'm going to give it some water here in a second, but I wanted to talk about the type of soil that I have it in. Hoyas like a really well-draining soil, so this is a tropical plant mix, and you can see there's lots of perlite in there as well, so it's a really fast-draining mixture that doesn't allow the moisture to remain in the pot for too long. So I like to soak these when I water them, but they will dry out much quicker than if you just had it in like a regular potting soil, which I wouldn't really recommend. I have a tropical plant mix with some extra added perlite. That's what I use. I know some people like to mix in like some orchid bark or just something for a little bit more of an airy mixture, and that's okay as well. Also, I like to use, for the most part, terracotta my cute little label. I don't have any more of the labels themselves, so that's why I haven't been able to make more labels, so I gotta order that. But anyways, I like to use terracotta. It's very good at absorbing soil moisture lower in the pot. It's very porous, so it kind of wicks up that moisture and then evaporates it out. But I've used Hoyas, or I've had Hoyas in just regular nursery pots. No problem, just make sure it has a drain hole at the bottom. I'm going to give a little flowering secret here in a second, but after you give your Hoya, and this can be applied to any Hoya, after you water your Hoya, make sure it dries out completely. I let mine get like absolutely bone dry, like you can just hear crunching when you put your finger in the soil. That's how dry I let it get. Now, to determine whether your Hoya needs water, not only by the soil, I like to feel the leaves. Right now, they still feel pretty plump, and there are different varieties of Hoyas. Like there's some thinner leafed ones, like the Polynera. They're almost like paper thin. But these pubicalyx are pretty thick, so they're more like succulent type. So that's how I determine whether my succulents need water, is by the leaves. Usually they're fairly firm, fairly rigid, and this one is fairly thick. You can see I can bend it fairly easy. It just feels like the leaf is a little bit squishy. So I know this one definitely needs to be watered. You don't want to get to the point where it gets wrinkly or anything like that. Just if the leaf feels soft, then it probably needs water, as long as the soil is absolutely bone dry. Okay, so I'm going to turn it around this way so that you can see how fast the water drains through. I use this container for another video, and there may actually be fertilizer in there, but that's okay. Yeah, just pour it in and let it drain out the bottom of the drain hole. See how fast that is draining through? It's just going right through the soil, and that's exactly what you want. It's already coming out the bottom. I might do that a couple times, just paying attention to the weight of the pot. It's really hard to overwater a plant if you have it in the correct soil and pot. You don't want a pot that's too large, and that's another thing that I wanted to mention. Don't oversize the Hoya pot. Hoyas, they love to be snug in a smaller pot. They almost like to be more root bound, but if you have a larger pot, there's just more soil for moisture to remain in, and that can lead to kind of root rot. So I'm actually going to give this one more soaking, as it was really dry, and just let that drain through. Now, the Hoya flowering secret is basically to neglect it. If you have like a watering routine of maybe like a week or every kind of 10 days, cut back on watering a little bit more. Anytime you stress out a plant, it feels the need to reproduce, and it will develop flowers. So if you put it in higher light and you water it less, then it should stress that plant out just a little bit to the point where it wants to flower and, I guess, reproduce. So it's a really kind of easy, basic concept, but if you're really babying the plant, then it's probably not going to flower, as some Hoyas don't flower for a few years. But really stress it out, not to the point where it's going to die, but maybe, you know, cut back on watering a couple days more than what you would normally water your plant with, and maybe just put it in a little bit of a higher location or higher light location, just to kind of stress it out just a little bit more. And that's really all it takes. And most of my Hoyas right now are blooming. I think all of them are, actually. I have a Wayeti that's blooming right now, this pubicalyx. My Rebecca, it is constantly flowering. That thing has probably like 20 peduncles on it, but it's just a really easy concept. Just stress your Hoya out, and you should eventually get some flowers on your Hoya plant. I just had to show this cute little potsy eye leaf that it's sun-stressed. It's pretty cute. But also I wanted to talk about humidity. Most Hoyas can tolerate regular house humidity, so that's in the ranges of like 30 to 40%. I know it gets pretty dry here in Canada. But if you start to see some deformed leaves like this right here, there's even a couple areas down here. There could be two reasons for this. One being pest issues, so look for mealybugs or even thrips. I think they can cause an issue with deformed leaves, but none of the leaves are yellowing. They're not damaged. They're only slightly deformed, and lower humidity can cause this issue as well. So if you're seeing leaves like this, there may have been lower humidity while this leaf was developing. Right now it is, let's see, Downstairs here, it's 67%, so it's pretty high, and all the new leaves are coming out perfect. Like, look at how glossy this is. It's just gorgeous. Same with these guys here. So if you're having an issue with deformed leaves like this, or just kind of misshapen, maybe try adding like a humidifier close by it. And they definitely like the higher humidity, that's for sure. But most, like I said, can tolerate that regular 30 to 40%. I'm not going to take any cuttings off this plant today, but I do have a couple of other different Hoyas that are currently rooting in my prop box, which I'll show you. But I'll show you what to expect after you basically cut off the stem. I like to take single leaf node cuttings, so it has a section of the stem, I guess I should focus there, and then it has two leaves. So you can see right here, this is where I've previously made a cut. So the vine or the stem will continue on up here. There'll be more leaves up top. If you make the cut fairly close to this leaf node, you will get a new branch that starts from that node. So you can see this whole new stem is now producing some little leaves back there, and this little guy right here. So that's why I like taking single leaf node cuttings and just putting multiple cuttings in one pot, so that it gets to be like a larger pot like this Hoya polyneura as well. These are all single node, single leaf cuttings. Here's a good example right there. So I did take a cut right here. There's the old stem, and it has now pushed out an entirely new stem with multiple leaves. And that's how you make an entirely new plant from single node leaf cuttings. I'll show you the ones in the prop box. This is pretty much the only way I root Hoyas now, is in Perlite. I have a few different types of plants in here, and I'm going to show you. This is a Hoya carnosa. Look at these roots. It roots so fast. This is definitely ready to be potted up. I don't even remember like when I potted these or put these in the prop box. Here is a Crimson Queen. It's got a couple of roots. Here's another Crimson Queen. It's got some nicer roots on this. I have no issues with rooting Hoyas in Perlite. They root super fast. I had a dying Hoya Chelsea. I don't know what happened. I think I underwatered it, and basically the roots dried up and it developed root rot. You can see like just how thin and fragile these leaves are, which normally they're fairly thick like a regular carnosa. They feel very plump, but this feels really dehydrated. So I took it out of the pot, chopped it up, and now I'm getting some new roots. I'm gonna rehab this. I basically saved my Chelsea from dying. Here's a couple more. Oh, this is gonna be some thick roots. Here's another carnosa. Look, oh my goodness. Look at those. Okay, so I'm gonna definitely have to pot these up. So just so you can see, obviously here's the section of the stem. This is where it continues to grow. So I like to cut it as close as I can to the node, because you're not going to get any new growth from the stem that you cut. You're going to get it from the node itself. So it'll pop out. Eventually it'll start to push out an entirely new vine. So you can just knock off the perlite here as well. I like using perlite as opposed to sphagnum moss, because sphagnum moss typically holds on to more moisture than I'm comfortable with. The perlite is just a regular soil amendment. It's used for drainage, and it's really easy to get off the roots. As you can see, Hoya roots, they're very fine, they're very delicate, and when you have it wrapped up in sphagnum moss, it's tough to tell what's a root and what's actually moss. So I don't root anything in sphagnum moss when it comes to Hoyas, but you can see how easy you can just knock it off. You can just shake it off. No issue to the roots at all. You can even leave it on. It's not going to be an issue, but that's why I like using perlite. If you are interested or don't know much about perlite prop boxes, I do have a few videos like how to set them up, how to maintain them, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave one of the videos up in the top corner. You can go check that out, but I have a few on the channel if you want to learn about perlite prop boxes. I'm not going to do it, but just to show you how I got these cuttings. If I was to propagate this polyneura, I would cut it right here, snip that off, and then you can take this top leaf as well as this stem here and then put it in the prop box. So then you're left with this section after that. And again, just snip it closest or as close as you can to the node without damaging the node. And then you have another leaf and stem section that you can put in the perlite or water, whatever you prefer. And just do that for all of these leaves so that once you get a number of those single leaf cuttings, then you can stick them all in a pot together if you so choose, and that way you get a nice bushy Hoya plant in time, of course. I have so many propagations going on right now, it's ridiculous. Not only with Hoyas, but a number of other types of plants. I literally don't have any room, so I know I'll get a question asking if I sell cuttings of my plants, and answer is yes, I do occasionally, but I typically sell them locally. I don't ship or anything like that. But I don't know, maybe I'll start shipping something down the road. Who knows? Maybe I'll give away some plants at some point too. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed seeing my Hoya pubicalyx. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye.